Sure, thank you. And good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having me today. So the families often are left behind in this issue, and I myself have been a family member since I was a child. And then, obviously later in life, it happened in my own family with one of my children. And I knew as a child that the family was left behind because it was always all about how can we fix this or how can we fix that, or there was a lack of this or a lack of that. And then I would go to school.
And you had addiction issues when you were a very small child with your family members?
Right. So we have grandparents, we have spouses, we have siblings, and we have children of those who suffer from addiction. And that's what our job is at Learn to Cope. I started it almost 15 years ago. And it was because, our family needed help, and families still today need help. So I think one of the most important things for families is support, education, resources, and hope. And when you are not educated on the disease and the concepts of the disease and treatment and how we can be a part of their recovery rather than nagging and saying, why can't you just stop? More learning that this is something that they can't just stop on their own. And then we stop blaming ourselves. Because the first thing you do when it happens to your child or your spouse or your parent is, what did I do wrong? Did I do too much of this? Did I do not enough of that? And so at our meetings, when somebody walks into a meeting or any meeting like ours, not just there's other groups out there, just being welcomed, having somebody put a hand on your shoulder and say, it's okay, I know how you feel. There's something to be said about peer support. And you should always get therapy. We don't try to replace therapy, but having peer support and being with people that understand you, that are not going to judge you, that are not going to judge your spouse or your children, that was a huge piece of my recovery. I think I grew up with stigma my entire life, so when it happened in my adult life, I thought, no, I'm not going to live the rest of my life this way. This is a disease. This is something that we need help with, that my loved one needed help with. And so I came out, and when I did that, there were thousands of other people that were going through what I was. And today we have 25 chapters across the state of Massachusetts. We're very grateful to Mary Lou Sutter's, the Department of Public Health, the Baker administration, and even before then, Michael Botticelli, who recognized that when families are able to get support and education, sometimes that can make the difference in that person's life, and they might end up getting stronger in the long run. And the deaths are really, really difficult. In my office, there's not many weeks that go by that we don't deal with a number of them. We get many crisis calls today where people are just finding out that their daughter or husband or son or grandchild is using heroin. And the pills, there's been a lot of great work done. We still have a lot more to do. We're very grateful for what's happening as far as the prescriptions, but there's still a multitude of prescribing going on where there's people on multiple prescriptions that they might do better without, like a mixture of them. So we have a long way to go, but my role really, and the role of the many volunteers who are amazing with Learn to Cope and the staff, is to take care of those families because they are left behind, very much so. And there's kids in school right now that might have witnessed an overdose the night before, or that might have lost their parent and is in foster care, or that is being raised by grandparents that should be retiring now and are trying to figure out how to afford daycare, thinking, wow, I'll be 75 at their graduation if I'm lucky. So those are the things. I'm here to remind everybody of the things that we might not think about or have to deal with. It's a very scary thing to think, wow, I had plans for my future, for my retirement. I wanted to travel, and now instead they're worried about what the effects are going to be later, and if they're going to be able to take care of that child up until their 70s and 80s and sometimes 90s.
Yeah.